cold winter morning finds you well rested. I uh, I slept well. It was one of those things where I I I awoke. I was just kind of like up, and I was like, oh man, because it didn't feel like it was time to get up. And I looked at my watch, and I had 15 more minutes to sleep. So, I was like, oh man. So I just kind of laid there waiting for the alarm to go off, and then got up. But it's so funny. I set a goal for 75 days no alcohol. I think I'm at like close to 95. And I don't know when I'm going to go back to drinking. I don't know if I will or not. I imagine I will, but I don't know. Anyway, with I used to blame alcohol for a lot of things, and rightly so. Um, and one of them was not sleeping well and getting up, um, getting up too early because it would just feel like my body was just like revved, and then I'd have these kind of lag where in the morning I would feel kind of just kind of sluggish and slow, and I'd have to really get myself kind of revved up to get back to the day. And so I would, there was a part of this story that the part of my story was that I could always kind of put, oh, why am I not feeling this way, or why am I not feeling that way? I could put like an explanation for it. Like, here's why. So it was like the alcohol created a reflection that I could interact with and create a story around. And so the reason why I bring that up is I think so we're at the 107th stanza. And the stanza reads, "The divine is not something high above us. It is in heaven, it is in earth, and it is inside of us." And so this alcohol aspect of this narrative is the alcohol created something that was not me, right? It's this, right? So here it is, here I am. So that's not me, right? And so when I do engage with this, I have this story about this isn't me. So if I just get rid of this, then what's left is this. I'm not this, right? So this aspect of having this in my life, I'm not this, creating this sense of separation. So now the alcohol's gone, but I still have a lot of the little kind of things that I used to do when I would drink or as a result of drinking that are still there. So part of me sees this as it's not that. It's not necessarily just the alcohol. There's other aspects of me that are just as much as involved with the kind of the little things that I do. And so the point I'm trying to make here is I think that's divinity's job too. Like, alcohol isn't the only part of my identity that's not part of divinity. So there's so much to who I am that's built off of trauma and betrayal and my story and identity. And what's divine in me is not that. So part of what I understand divinity's job inside of me to do is to show me over and over and over again that I'm not that. I'm not the story of my past. I'm not the story of betrayal. I'm not the first rage. The first rage I ever felt was towards God after my brother died. I was so angry. And I felt betrayed. I felt betrayed by God. I felt like God had betrayed our love and our trust as my family. And I mean, I ripped my baptismal sash in half. I broke all the crosses in my room. I really rejected God completely in a very, very angry way. And have since felt an acute response to betrayal. And so much so that when it comes to professionalism and moving forward, in a lot of ways, I will actually go light. I won't go hard at something professional or hard at, and before my wife, hard at relationships, because I didn't want to get too involved, because if I got too involved or too far in, the chance of being hurt and betrayed would go up. And it's a classic example, I feel like I'm one of those Lifetime movies where the person describes, like, always date the same person or always fall in the same problem or whatever. Well, it kind of feels the same. Like after my brother's death, that was a best friend of mine. Actually, it started, well, it was right before. The Anyway, I had subsequent friends that were very tight. I was very close with. Really felt just a natural, deep connection to. And then there were these moments where it all broke apart, and that feeling of betrayal came back again. And that's happened. I mean, that's happened almost. I think that's happened 4 times. It's happened 4 times where I've felt deeply betrayed by people who I felt close to. And so a big chunk of my story, a big chunk of my identity, a big chunk of my ego is protecting myself from that. So um, I think what divinity does inside me is to help me with the reality that I'm not that. I'm not the story. I'm not these traumas. I've got them in my body. My body, like Dr. Bressel van der Kolk says, my body keeps the score, right? And then, let's drop another name. Brene Brown will talk about vulnerability as what we use armor to cover up. And so the armor that we use to cover up these feelings are all things that um, give voice to the identity, give voice to the story. But what happens when we armor down is we start to recognize that we're not those things. And recognizing that you're not those things is important, largely because by seeing the bifurcation, not this, there's choice and awareness. And from choice and awareness, there's the opportunity to create action and to move forward and to evolve. And while I'm definitely evolving a little bit, I still have a ways to go. Gosh, it's one of the trickiest parts about the mindfulness and the meditative path, is that these things start to open up and your awareness starts to open up. But it doesn't mean just because you can see what's going on or kind of have a deeper understanding of what's going on, it can just immediately be changed. And so there's really, it's really important to understand that what you're working on is a lifetime. It's a lifetime of of participation. In Thich Nhat Hanh will say, as a song goes, nowhere to go, nothing to do, and I'm in no hurry, which is, I think, appropriate to kind of think about your own self and your own development. And that's, you're just the way you are. And as you kind of understand more and more deeply of who you are and the way you are, the opportunity to evolve and to make little changes here and there that amount to bigger changes, just continue to show. And I guess the last thing I'll say is, the more the armor comes off, and the more you process things more smoothly and even keeled, in a sense, the more what shows up under the noise will show up. And all the hurt and all the kind of the stuff that you want to protect yourself from, right? That stuff all kind of starts to come to the surface, and You got to start to interacting with it. And again, the last thing I'll say is having divinity there to be the guide and to be the resource that you can count on when your story falls apart, I think is exactly what divinity does inside of us. So with that, let's get into the training. Again, it's not going to be till the new year till I do like a new training where I'll have kind of the basics of mindfulness. So what you'll see now is more of an example of me kind of showing or talking about what's happening inside of me at the meditative level, as opposed to here's how you can get into the meditative level. So I encourage you to follow your own practice, and be curious about what's going on for me, and as I try to kind of articulate what's going on the inside. So there's two kind of patterns of sound going on in my head. One is to the front left of me, which is the sound of the space heater. The sound is excuse me. The sound is got a pattern to it. The other sound is the song in my head. It's "This is the rhythm of the night. Oh, night. Oh yeah." So that's going on in my head. It's relatively quiet. If I give it space, it sounds like it in my mind, the sound feels like it's coming from the bottom right of my mind, whereas the sound of the space heater is coming from the front left. Shifting to another sensation, I've got my left foot close to the space heater, feeling sensation of warmth there. I'm getting some warmth on the front of my left knee. The rest of my body is getting pulled on by the cold. I can feel the pull of the cold on my skin. I can feel it on my back. I can feel it especially on my forearms and upper arms. As I'm talking about it, the cold is becoming more sensational. I'll shift from that awareness and move into just awareness of taste and smell. The second I said, see the taste and smell, the song from my Catholic upbringing. Taste and see the goodness of the Lord. So that's replaced the old song. I feel a bit of smile on my face. That memory has a positive resonance. Let's go to second bell. Feeling my ground. What I envisioned was my body being see-through and just kind of looking down my body from kind of like my mind straight down, and kind of see the circle of the cushion beneath me, the square of the ground beneath me, the concrete. My attention shifted. I had a little bit of indigestion, so I felt that. I've got an itch on the tip of my chin, so I feel my attention being pulled to different places. So I'm going to send my attention back down to my pelvis to give my pelvis a little bit more kind of say in or more bigger kind of awareness or just a bigger signal. Move around a little bit so I can feel the cushion shifting. My attention jumps back up to my chin. My chin's really trying to get me to itch. So I'm going to stay focused on that. So I'm come from pelvis up to core. Core feels pretty good. There's no clenching going on. There's warmth at the core, which is nice. Lower back and sides feel cold, but the warmth at the core feels nice. Move up to heart space. I feel like I'm leaning left, so I'm going to count for that a little bit. I went straight from my shoulders up my throat into my jaw. Move that around. I come back down to my shoulder blades. The first thing I noticed when I came back to my shoulder blades was coldness. Kind of a wave of coldness went down my triceps on both sides. My heart feels lifted. My shoulders and my chest feel strong and balanced. Come up to my throat, had a little bit of mucus, swallow that down. Swallow again, noticing the experience of swallow. Notice the experience of breath going down throat. So throat feels acknowledged. Moving up to head. I have a kind of image in my mind of my head. I have a awareness of the skull itself. I'm imagining the skull as the top of the spine. Imagining getting taller by a millimeter. In that process, I let go of some compression at the core. Feel tall. There's in my mind, I can see a little bit of purple. There's a little bit of, it's kind of around my skull. It's a little bit of a kind of a purpley color. It feels light and nice, and I can feel it a little smile on my face. I feel taller. It's a nice upright feeling. And let that song from church, it's an old song. It's a song I haven't heard in a while. It's a very familiar song. I'll let that go in my mind for a little while. Move on to the third bell. Max out my breath here. Felt some cracking in the back. Letting the breath out easy. Let's do a Wim Hof just to kind of play around with the cold. So the first thing I'm going to do is I'm going to hyperventilate myself, and then I'm going to go into a hold. So first part you'll see is the hyperventilation, and then you'll see the hold. Typically after I do a Wim Hof series, I do 2 full rounds of breath. Everything slows way down with Wim Hof. And there's kind of like the old TV screens where you would see like the fuzzy screen, the fuzzy white, black little fuzziness, no signal screen. The cold is less, it's obvious, but it's less sensational. It's like the sensation of the cold's a little bit quieter. It also feels more still and stable, mountain-like inside. It's still very quiet in my mind. I'm still getting this song a little bit, but mostly it's quiet. Let's go shift to 4th bell. Let's turn some of this goodness inside into expressions of gratitude and compassion. First thing that showed up in my head when I thought of gratitude was my mom. Put my hands up here. I noticed the difference between my hands on my knees and my hands here. Hands in front of heart. It's called prayer pose in yoga. I mean, it's how we pray. Also, you've got the fists here. Mama, I miss you, Mom. Thank you so much for your impact on me and how much of you is inside of me and how much support you gave me in my entire life and how I could always count on you for a friendly ear and great advice, but mostly just you were such a great listener. Thank you so much for being the best listener ever. I miss you and I love you. And I'm sad that we're not going to spend Christmas with you. I know you, Allegra misses you. Dad misses you. This Christmas without you is going to be a little bit tough. Allegra's having a hard time with not being able to see people. And I wish she could talk to you. Thank you for always being there. And then for everyone who doesn't have someone to turn to, who is really kind of stuck in a hard place, I hope a friend who you haven't talked to in a little while calls you up, or I hope you run into someone on social media that you haven't talked to in a while and it gives you a little spark. So for all the people out there that are, kind of feeling like they're all by themselves, I hope there are moments today that you feel like you're not alone and that there are people out there that are able to help, and that you maybe stumble across a moment where it's like, oh, someone does give a crap, or you find a connection that you hadn't found in a while, or maybe it's you find a letter or a note or a quote that motivates you or keeps you going. I hope that happens for all the people today that are, lonely and feeling by themselves. So now I'll finish the practice with an intentional way. So it's 2 rounds of breath, and the second exhale finishes. All right. So that's how that works. Anyway, I hope you have a great rest of your day. If you have any questions or comments, always available. Thank you for spending some time with me. I truly appreciate it. And have a great rest of your day, Armor.